Mrs. Wigglesworth gets the milk. Chapter 1. Mr. Wigglesworth was reading his beans when Mrs. Wigglesworth stopped the tractor and called to him. I'm just going into town to get some milk. Mr. Wigglesworth sighed. He knew what to expect. It wasn't a bottle of milk. Nobody was tossed a trailer into town to get the milk. He thought to probably come home with the car from the SPCA. Mr. Wigglesworth knew Mrs. Wigglesworth very well. She loved animals as much as he loved plants. Once a week, she helped look after rescued animals at the SPCA. Sometimes, when good homes were hard to find for some of those animals, she brought them home. She never told Mr. Wigglesworth about them until they arrived. Once Mrs. Wigglesworth went to town to get butter. She came home with a goat. Mr. Wigglesworth liked the goat because the goat ate all the weeds around the trees. Once Mrs. Wigglesworth went to get eggs. She came home with 10 hens rescued from a battery farm. Mr. Wigglesworth liked the eggs they laid every day as well as the manure for his cabbages. Because birds were eating Mr. Wigglesworth's plants, Mr. Wigglesworth went to town to get him a scarecrow. She came home with a cat. So, when Mrs. Wigglesworth came home with a cat on the trailer, Mr. Wigglesworth wasn't surprised, even though he pretended to be. Her name is Lucy, said Mr. Wigglesworth as she moved the car into the paddock. We have to treat her gently. She's had a tough time. Chapter 2. Mr. Wigglesworth knew Lucy's so because she was helping out at the SPCA century that day. Lucy was brought in. Lucy was found mooing steadily and forgotten once more from in the hills. The old man who owned the farm was sick and couldn't look after his animals anymore. His animals were sold, but Lucy was left behind. When she arrived at the SPCA century, Lucy had lost weight. Her legs were sore and she was in pain because she hadn't been milked for days. The next time Mrs. Wigglesworth saw Lucy, she looked much better. She had been milked every day. She had been treated by a vet. She had a paddock with fresh water, lots of grass and shade. She had a friend named Scoffy. Scoffy was a stray dog who had been hit by a motorbike and had lost a leg. He had been running away from a man who was angry because Scoffy had knocked over his rubbish bins while looking for food. One day, Scoffy used his three good legs to run away from Nicole on an SPCA helper. He scrambled on the fence and found Lucy in her paddock. Scoffy had never seen a cat before and he was curious. He remembered after her. He started wagging excitedly. Lucy was curious too. She put her head down and stared quietly. When Scoffy's face got close enough, she licked him. Instead of being frightened, Scoffy seemed to like it. He licked her back. By the time Nico climbed the fence to take Scoffy back to dog enclosure, Scoffy and Lucy were friends. While they waited for new homes, Scoffy and Lucy were allowed to spend time together every day. They chased, they played, and sometimes, when they were tired, they lay in the grass and looked at each other. That was what they were doing that day. Mrs. Wigglesworth drove a tractor and trailer into the field to collect Lucy. Chapter 3. After a few days, Mrs. Wigglesworth was worried that it wasn't as lively or curious, and she wasn't giving as much milk either. Lucy isn't happy. Mrs. Wigglesworth said, she should be. Mrs. Wigglesworth, she's got plenty to eat, also fresh water and vegetables from my trees, and she has milked every day. What more could a cow want? Maybe she's lonely, said Mr. Wigglesworth. Cows are like us. They have personalities, and they like to be around others. Cows like company. Maybe we should.
No.
No. We shouldn't, said Mr. Wigglesworth, who knew what Mr. Wigglesworth was thinking. We certainly don't have enough grass to feed to cows. Besides, I need the trailer to go and get some back for the rose garden. Mr. Wigglesworth looked at Daisy steadily. Then her eyebrows lifted and her eyes sparkled. A small smile formed on her lips. Buck, she said. What a good idea. You stay here and plant the rose bushes. I go into town and get the buck for you. Chapter 4. Mr. Wigglesworth looked up from his rose garden as Miss Wigglesworth turned the tractor and the trailer into the driveway. He could see what was in the trailer. Buck, he said. She really has got me some buck for the garden. As the tractor came closer, Mr. Wigglesworth could see something else on the seat beside her. It was a small, scruffy dog. Woof! Woof! Mr. Wigglesworth stopped the tractor. I wasn't sure if you need dog bug. Tree bug or dog bug. She laughed. So I got you both. I thought you would. Not Mr. Wigglesworth, as he lifted the dog off the tractor. His name is Scruffy, said Mrs. Wigglesworth. Yes, to his friend, leaped out of Mr. Wigglesworth's arms and ran to the cow paddock. I can see that, laughed Mr. Wigglesworth. Looks like we've got ourselves a happy cow and a happy dog. Well done! Thank you, smart Mrs. Wigglesworth. Now help me get this back off the trailer. I want to go back into town and get a large chunk. What? Laughed Mr. Wigglesworth. This trailer isn't strong enough to hold an elephant.